Welcome back to the channel for the week 7 update of this UNS45t. For those of you who've been watching the previous videos, I did move this tank recently to a new area, new location, and been doing a lot of testing on the water parameters. Unfortunately, the water is still liquid rock, and due to the fact that we're kind of approaching 2 months in and losing that acidification quality of the 88 Amazonia, I'm seeing some pH creep up. The water from the tap at this new location has a stupid high GH and KH, and that is going to give me some issues. Unfortunately, because of these water parameters, if I want a lot more success with this low-tech setup, I am going to have to cut with probably 50% RO just to try to get my general hardness and carbonate hardness down. The reason why you don't want high carbonate hardness is that it basically makes it harder for your plants to absorb nutrients by binding to those molecules and basically making them too thick or too large to migrate or perforate through the cell wall of the plants, so they cannot absorb as much nutrients. Obviously, that is an issue in a low-tech environment because you're not getting the acidification and you're not injecting liquid, or you're not injecting carbon into the water column, which would obviously make it easier for plants to absorb nutrients, as carbon's basically the number one building block of the plant material. This week, definitely seeing a decrease in the brown algae, but unfortunately, still kind of dealing with a lot, probably from the pH and using this super hard water. So stay tuned, because obviously I am going to be using RO. I actually just plumbed everything up today. So going to be cutting my water 50-50, just so I don't have to remineralize. If you use 100% RO water, you will have to remineralize it, especially depending on your setup. If you don't have any like sand or any rock, especially if you're running shrimp, because you want them to be able to molt still. You can't just use pure water. You need to remineralize that. For those wondering, that is not a CO2. That is a twin star. Kind of just threw it in here as an experiment, honestly, to see how well it would do in a low-tech environment with controlling algae. I want to say it works, but honestly, I'm not too sure. It's hard to say without doing a control without it with the same setup. I am running pretty, high, I guess you would say, surface agitation with the skimmer there, so that also does help with some oxygen exchange, as well as some floating plants there to, take advantage of the atmospheric CO2 and try to absorb some nutrients quicker. But I don't really have a ton of fast grows in here, probably besides the chain swords in that far right corner there. So I don't really have a lot of algae control in this tank as far as like plant strategy wise. So I did actually pick up some autosyncluses. For those of you who are paying attention from last week, I didn't mention I was going to grab some and throw them in this tank with some Amanos, and they seem to be controlling the algae quite well. I did not dose any XL this week. I'm just kind of running an experiment, seeing how everything does. I am expecting to see a huge decrease in algae once I start cutting with RO, just to obviously mitigate the trace elements from the city water, as well as getting my carbonate hardness lower so the plants can absorb the nutrients easier. Anywho, stay tuned and follow along for the ride. We'll see how dense and how well we can get this tank to fill in with a low-tech setup. Thanks for watching, guys.